I love the Mitch Garver acquisition. Look, this is a guy I was very high on in Minnesota. You go back to the last, he's had some injury trouble, but you go back to the last time he played anywhere close to a full season, 100 games. 2019, he put up a quiet MVP caliber season in Minnesota, hitting the high 270s, 31 home runs at a premium position behind the plate. You plug in Marcus Semien and Corey Seager at the 2 and 3 spots in the lineup. Now you add Mitch Garver as your catcher. You're looking at a bona fide middle of the order lineup for Chris Woodward this season. And if those 3 players stay healthy, that's a really good 2, 3, 4 punch down the middle. They're going to most likely be up against a Calgary Flame team that features a 100-point scorer, Johnny Gaudreau, Matt Tkachuk, a very high-scoring team, one of the top goal-scoring teams in the league. And the good part about this Dallas team is the line number 1. Their top line with Hintz, Pavelski, and Robertson could play with anybody. They're outscoring opponents from that line 45-32, but when those 3 players are off the ice, they're being outscored 88-64. They have to have production from Sagan, from Ben, from Radulov. Klingberg can't be the minus 23 defender he's been this season. And I mentioned rebounding. You go back to last season, the one category this team really struggled in was rebounding. They were middle of the pack. They were 6th in offensive rebounds, all the way down to 11th in defensive boards. And it's no coincidence that 3 of the top 4 seeds in Conference USA play that made the tournament were top 5 in rebounding. What she does, Hausler, when she's right, is she keeps the game going downhill. She commands up front. She's 5th in blocking, 6th in hit percentage. And you know a player like Rhett Robertson is going to be the focal of your opponent's game plan. They're going to want to stay away from her on the outside. So you bring in Sarah Hausler to command the middle. It's going to force teams to change their game plan, and that plays right into the hand of North Texas. It's a 1-2 punch with Robinson and Hausler. You lose a player like Javion Hamlet, and I think it forces you to become less dependent on one player, and truly this year they are. I love the double-digit scoring margin. I love the 3-point defense, the fact that they shoot the 3 as well as anybody in a conference. And you mentioned we're getting into conference play. This team has the ability to run the table in conference play going forward, but there's one game circled on the calendar at home in Denton, regular season finale against Rice, ranked team, number 1 Conference USA team a year ago. That is the game that North Texas, if they are able to hold serve, be in contention to win the conference, that game against Rice, end of the season, look out. This is a transition year. Look, the Seager and Semien acquisitions, I love them because they weren't brought here to be quick fixes. They're brought to be parts of this rebuild. They're signed on for 7 and 10 years. Yes. This American League West division is quietly one of the most compelling divisions. You look at the top 4 teams, the Astros, Angels, even the Mariners, I think, are just a level above the Angels. And you know, for this Ranger team, best case scenario, you're looking at playing meaningful games down the stretch. You have some prospects that develop, but the pitching staff, there's still too many questions for this to be a legitimate contender, even with that 3rd wild card team this year. I'm with Jeremiah, but I'll focus on a trade that did actually get made. It was the Nashville Predators acquiring, really their only piece was Jeremy Lazat. And this was a fork in the road deadline for Nashville. They're right in the bottom of the playoff spot. They're in that last wild card in the West. And with their all-time leading goal scorer in franchise history, Philip Forsberg, and free agent to be, they had to make a decision whether or not they were going to buy in and go all in with this last year with Forsberg, or there was talk of flipping him at the deadline, even though they're in a playoff spot. And they chose neither option. And they're left with a 24-year-old defenseman who, yes, there's value in a young defenseman, but this is a guy who's played 4 partial seasons. He's mustered just 11 points. It's a big missed opportunity, I thought, for Nashville, given the situation they were in. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really in an advantageous position where you look where Dallas is with those 6 games. 3 of them are not only against non-playoff teams, they're at home. And those are very important games, must-win games, because, like you said, they're looking down at the Vegas Golden Knights, who are trailing them. They have a key game with them coming up. But if Dallas can win those 3 games at home, it'll put them in a position to where they can clinch a playoff spot in that game with Vegas by just getting a point, even if Vegas were to win out. Team-first mentality. And I thought J.J. Murray said it best when he said, if you can't defend, you're not going to play here under Grant McCasland. And you fast forward to year number 5, the stability that he's gotten through that consistency of what the message is since he got here has now created a tradition and a culture that new players and old players know. The second they lace up those shoes for Grant McCasland, they're going to know what style of basketball they're going to play. And there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to Baker. You have the Deshaun Watson potential suspension at the start of the year, so you don't know if he's going to be there week 1. You have the team coming out reportedly saying they're not going to honor a Baker trade, and also the fact that you have Carolina, who I actually had as my number 1 suitor for Baker Mayfield. They said they're not potentially interested in going for a trade. So I think his future's still uncertain, but I think week 1 he's going to be a Brown. Whether or not he plays will be a different story. Yeah, they're really, I thought, in the same scenario as Nashville, when you have one of your top blue liners in Klingberg probably going to vacate, leave, and during at the end of the free agency. And they acquired a really nice middle six forward in Vladislav Nemestikov. You pair him with Tyler Sagan in that second line. Good move, but is it the move that's going to move the needle? And I'm not so sure. And now you're about to lose not only Radulov potentially, but your main man Klingberg in free agency.
Yeah, that's